the mystery behind the Soviet spaceflight. When the Soviet Union officially ceased to exist on December 26, 1991, the mysteries of that era remained to this day, especially during the Cold War period and its efforts to conquer space. The world only knew Yuri Gagarin as the first human to travel into space aboard the Vostok spacecraft. But the tragedies behind the scenes were completely hidden. Yuri Gagarin, a short-lived hero, was reported by Soviet media as the first person to fly into space on April 12, 1961, aboard the Vostok spacecraft. This event was considered a major milestone in human history, the first time a human had escaped Earth's bounds and entered outer space. The Vostok spacecraft, weighing 300 tons, orbited Earth at an altitude of 327 kilometers for 108 minutes before returning. At a height of 7 kilometers, Gagarin ejected from the capsule and landed safely by parachute. From then on, the 27-year-old astronaut became world-famous, his name known across the globe. But that fame was also believed to be the main reason behind his mysterious and untimely death. Gagarin's death and lingering doubts. On March 27, 1968, less than 7 years after becoming the Soviet Union's national hero, Gagarin died during a training flight near Moscow while piloting a MiG-15 with fellow pilot Vladimir Seryogin. The Soviet authorities conducted an investigation and concluded that the MiG-15 lost control while attempting to avoid an unidentified object spiraling downward and crashing. Both pilots died instantly. However, this conclusion failed to convince experts and those who had known Gagarin personally. To this day, the death of the 34-year-old hero remains a major unsolved mystery. The price paid, disasters hidden from the world. Even before Gagarin's historic flight on October 24, 1960, at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, a fuel-loaded military rocket exploded on the launch pad just after receiving the launch command. The disaster incinerated nearly everyone at the site. 268 people died instantly, with total casualties exceeding 500. One of the primary causes of the accident was the extremely low probability of success. Early manned space rockets only had a 50% success rate. Of the 6 test launches involving crewed capsules prior to Gagarin's mission, 3 ended in failure. And these are only the few numbers that were disclosed or leaked. Countless other truths were never revealed by Soviet authorities. Nearly 60 years after Gagarin's successful spaceflight, when sensitive information began to surface, even the Russians themselves admitted Gagarin was not the first person in space. Forgotten cosmonauts. Engineer Busadko, a senior test engineer from Experimental Design Bureau, 456 in Moscow, revealed a critical fact that the Soviet Union had kept hidden for more than 40 years. Other cosmonauts had died attempting to reach space before Gagarin's successful flight. According to Busadko's spacecraft piloted by Alexei Ledovsky, Andrei Mitkov and Sergei Shiborin were launched from the Kapustin Yar spaceport in 1957, 1958, and 1959. All 3 pilots perished during their missions, and their names were never made public. Busadko explained that these cosmonauts had participated in suborbital flights. Their goal was not to orbit the Earth like Gagarin, but to reach the highest point of a parabolic arc and return. These men were ordinary pilots with no specialized astronaut training. After these tragic attempts, Soviet project leaders decided to revamp their procedures, initiating formal astronaut training to build a professional cosmonaut corps. Chilling recordings from space. Another shocking source of information came from 2 Italian brothers, Achille and Giovanni Giudica Cordiglia, who operated an amateur radio listening station just outside the city of Turin. In the late 1950s, they claimed to have intercepted radio transmissions and recordings of tragic accidents in the Soviet space program. The brothers said they had heard radio conversations from secret Soviet space missions, including sounds of cosmonauts suffocating to death. One of the most notable recordings came on October 28, 1960, when, after more than an hour of monitoring, they received a distress signal from a spacecraft seemingly spinning out of control. Over the course of 4 years, the brothers reported 9 intercepted recordings, which included May 1960, a manned spacecraft reported veering off course. November 28, 1960, a faint distress signal from a troubled spacecraft drifting from Earth orbit. February 1961, clear recording of a cosmonaut suffocating to death. April 1961, a capsule orbited the Earth 3 times and re-entered the atmosphere 2 days before Gagarin's historic flight. May 1961, a spacecraft sent a distress call after losing control. October 1961, a cosmonaut lost control and disappeared into deep space. November 1962, a capsule miscalculated re-entry bounced off the atmosphere and vanished. November 1963, a female cosmonaut died attempting to return to Earth. April 1964, another cosmonaut died when the spacecraft burned upon re-entry. In the November 1963 recording, the brothers claimed they heard the sobbing voice of a woman trapped inside a failing spacecraft crying, "It's so hot, so hot," the secret behind the Vostok and Gagarin's journey. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin's Vostok spacecraft was not equipped with a deceleration engine or any safe landing mechanism that could ensure human survival upon return. To protect the astronaut's life, Soviet engineers decided to eject the cosmonaut from the capsule at an altitude of about 7 kilometers. Gagarin was launched out of the spacecraft and parachuted to the ground. However, by international standards, a mission is only officially recognized as a spaceflight if the astronaut lands with the spacecraft. At the time, Soviet officials declared that Gagarin had landed with the capsule and concealed the truth that he had been ejected separately until it was finally revealed in 1971. In fact, there is even information suggesting that someone else had successfully flown into space and returned alive before Gagarin. Part 7 was Gagarin, truly the first in space. On April 10, 1961, just 2 days before Gagarin's historic flight, an Italian newspaper Il Giorno reported that the Soviet Union had already sent a man into space, but because the astronaut landed in Chinese territory, the information was completely suppressed. French journalist Edouard Brobovsky later identified this man as Vladimir Ilyushin, a renowned test pilot and the son of famed aircraft designer Sergei Ilyushin. In 1999, Dr. Elliot Highmore of Global Science Productions, with assistance from a collaborator in Moscow named Pavel Ajazovsky, published a shocking documentary. They claimed that Ilyushin's flight had indeed occurred. According to their compiled data, Ilyushin was launched into space on April 7, 1961. After completing 3 orbits around Earth, he lost contact with ground control. Unable to escape his capsule, he was forced to land in Chinese territory. Though he survived, he was not allowed to appear in public. A year later, after extensive negotiations between China and the Soviet Union, he was returned in a highly secretive agreement. By then, the title of First Man in Space had already been given to Yuri Gagarin. In the end, the truth always surfaces. No matter how hard the Soviet Union tried to hide the facts, the truth eventually came to light. There will always be people like the Giudica Cordiglia brothers or brave journalists who connect the dots, dig deep, and bring the whole story into the light of day. The truth that the Soviet Union experienced failures, losses, and even earlier manned missions before Gagarin's does not diminish the significance of Gagarin's flight. On the contrary, it underscores the incredible price humanity has paid to break through the boundaries of Earth.